Hi beautiful, welcome to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to do a video that I have been avoiding. It is time to declutter the eyeshadow palette collection, which is mostly right there where the camera is pointing right now. You might have already seen the declutter of the rest of my collection. As I went through all of my drawers down there one by one, I showed you everything I have. I swatched everything and I got rid of quite a lot. It is time to do the palettes, and as you can see, especially by the look of this section right here, I have been avoiding it because my palettes are a mess. I used to have my palette collection super neat and organized by brand, by size, all of the fun things. However, in December, when I did my ranking of all of the palettes I had tried in 2023, I got a lot of the palettes out and I never put them back in their place, and then I just started piling up things there. We need to work on that. By the end of this video, hopefully everything will be nice and organized. The plan is to go through all of those sections and show you things that I am no longer using and feel like I'm better off without. Okay, so to get started, I was going back and forth on how I was going to go through everything and where I was going to set up the camera and whatnot. So I'm just going to pile up the palettes, go through my piles and show you everything that I'm getting rid of, and then clean everything and organize it back into my shelves. I put some cloth down on my table because my table is full of nicks and cracks, mainly from nail glue. Anyways, this right here is always a contender for declutter. This is the Urban Decay Gwen Stefani collaboration palette, and it's not a palette that I'm reaching for all that often, and right now it seems like a boring old palette. However, this was definitely a moment in time. This was my first ever collaboration palette I ever got, and also one of my first makeup purchases when I first started working at Sephora, so I don't have the heart to get rid of this one. I'm going to keep it. Keeping the KVD Beauty Moon Garden eyeshadow palette. Do you guys remember the Pure and Raw Beauty Kristi collaboration palette? It is a beautiful two-sided palette. We have colors, we have warm neutral shades. Also don't have the heart to get rid of this one, so keeping it. Getting rid of palettes for me is hard. I have feelings attached to a lot of them. This is the Through My Eyes I Love Sarai ColourPop collaboration palette, which as you can see has been used and abused. Absolutely love this one. Definitely needs to be cleaned, and I am keeping it. Matte About Hue from ColourPop is the first palette I am going to go ahead and get rid of. As you can see, I have never even used this one. This was sent to me in PR from ColourPop, and nothing against it. I think it is a beautiful palette. I know that ColourPop's eyeshadow formula is good, but I have never reached for it. I've had it in my collection for a while, and I just feel like it would be better for me to give it away to someone who will actually get use out of it. So I'm going to give it away. The So Jaded palette from Kathleen Lights and ColourPop. Incredible warm toned palette. Love the looks that I created with this one. I have a video with it on my channel and I am of course keeping it. Hindash monochrome palette I'm keeping. The infamous and beautiful Tati Beauty Volume 1 palette. So sad we never saw Volume 2. This is gorgeous and I love it and I am keeping it. Danessa Myricks Lightworks Volume 3, definitely keeping. Then I have this Be Perfect Cosmetics Carnival The Antidote palette. It's a Stacey Marie collaboration. I ordered this one when it first came out. I did a video on it. I honestly loved it. However, I'm not into warm tones as much anymore. I feel like none of us are at the moment. Mainly, I'm not into huge palettes anymore. I feel like smaller palettes that can travel better are what I'm reaching for. So I think I'm going to give this one away, and that way it can be used because I'm not reaching for it. I don't even have to tell you whether I'm keeping this one or not. You know, the answer is absolutely a keep. This is the Harry Potter ColourPop collaboration palette. I think it's beautiful. Could it have been better? Yes, but definitely staying in my collection. NARS, 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 and some more NARS right here. I think I'm going to be keeping all of these. Do they all? Oh, here's a cheek palette. Still keeping it. NARS. Narcissist is probably one of the oldest and also my favorite out of my NARS palettes. I love this one, but anyways, I'm keeping them all. Really love this Wayne Goss palette right here. Definitely keeping it. Kathleen Lights and Il Maquillage palette. I had such high expectations for this one. It did not meet my expectations. However, I do think it's a beautiful palette and I'm keeping it. This Jadette palette from Crash I got when I went to Spain. It is lovely, but I'm not reaching for it. it, so I'm gonna give it away. This one's pretty new. The Mario, the Neutrals palette, of course I'm keeping. My favorite Mario palette, the Ethereal palette, absolutely staying here. I have these two palettes from Viseart. These were sent to me in PR. I put them in my collection, hoping I would one day get use out of them, and honestly I think they're beautiful. I'm having a tough time saying no. However, I do have a lot of neutrals like this one, so I'm going to give this one away. And because I already got rid of a rainbow palette and I'm not sure if I have another one, I'm going to keep this colorful one for now. Milani Gilded Terra palette. I think it's beautiful. Really good performance for the price. I don't reach for it though. I'm going to give it away. Dominique Cosmetics, the Moment palette. Absolutely keeping. Urban Decay Born to Run palette. Absolutely love this one. Arguably the best palette Urban Decay ever released in my opinion, and also the last good palette Urban Decay released. I might be exaggerating, but honestly they need to get back to like some creativity. I love this one. Absolutely keeping it. e.l.f. Electric Mood palette is a Tina Major collaboration. I think it is stunning and the performance is amazing. However, I'm not reaching for it, so I'm going to give it away. ColourPop Muse Moment palette. I think it's beautiful, but again, not something I'm reaching for all too often, so I'm going to give this one away. Moving on, here is the Berlin 89 palette from Lethal Cosmetics. This one has a really nice variety of colors. I like that it has a multi-chrome in there, but it's not a palette that I'm reaching for too often, so I'm going to give this one away. Also from Lethal Cosmetics, this one is one that I designed myself. You can go on their website, pick out your own shades and create your own palette. That is what I did with this one, and I absolutely, of course, love this color story, so of course I'm keeping. My one and only palette from Cleona Cosmetics, which is full of the most beautiful, intense, shimmery, multi-chromy type shades. Absolutely keeping this one. One of my first palettes from Kaleidos, the Escapes Pod, and I love Kaleidos formula. My favorite Kaleidos palettes are the older ones. I love this one, so of course I'm keeping. Best palette Kaleidos has ever created right here, which was a collaboration with Angelica Nyqvist. I'm obsessed with this color story, totally keeping it. Urban Decay Wild Greens palette, honestly one of the better ones from Urban Decay, so I don't want to get rid of it. Big fan of whenever Charlotte Tilbury does holiday palettes, so I have 3 of them right here, and I can already tell you with confidence that I am not getting rid of any of these. We have the Pillow Talk one here, the Instant Eye palette, and the Bejeweled Eyes to Hypnotize. Absolutely love them all, and I'm keeping them. A bit of an Urban Decay Naked palette collection right here. Of course, the original Naked palette from Urban Decay. This was my first ever high-end makeup purchase. I've had it for at least 10 years, maybe even 11. It is old and expired, but still somehow the formulas are much better than anything Urban Decay comes out with these days, so I'm keeping it. The Naked 3 palette was my second high-end purchase ever, and I feel exactly the same about it. My original one that I had from a long time ago, I gave away, and this was another one that was, I believe, sent to me, or maybe I got it in gratis at Sephora or something. That's why it looks a little newer, but not getting rid of it. These two I care much less about. The Wild West palette from Urban Decay is okay. I don't know if it's something that I want to keep in my collection. And then this one here, which was, I think, a collaboration palette, I was not a big fan of. I had very high expectations for these beautiful shades right here on the right, and they ended up not performing to my liking. So I think I'm actually, do I want to part with some Urban Decay Naked palettes? I think I'm going to part with this one. And for now, I'm keeping Wild West. Here are some of my Too Faced palettes that come in this type of tin packaging. My favorite, of course, the Sweet Peach palette from Too Faced. This palette has a beautiful color story and amazing performance. I love it, and I am keeping it. Better Than Chocolate palette. I don't know what edition of the chocolate palettes this one is, but I remember that I was not impressed with it. So I was gonna say I'm going to give it away, but I think I'll keep it for like future comparisons videos. And the Italian Spritz palette, which was actually made in Italy, and it was one of their spring releases last year. I really loved this one, so I am keeping it. Here's an oldie but a goodie, and to this day my only ever purchase from Dose of Colors. the Desi and Katie collaboration palette. This palette is beautiful. I tried cleaning it a little bit. I can't get those stains out of the mirror. Whatever, this palette was used and abused. I love it. It has an amazing color story and it performs beautifully. I'm going to keep it. I can't get rid of it. This is another one of those palettes that just has memories attached to it. Here I have two more Too Faced palettes, neither one of which has been used. First, the Neutrals palette, which was recently sent to me in PR, and I'm actually dying to try it because this totally looks like something that I would love, but I haven't found time yet. Anyways, I am keeping it. And this one I actually purchased myself last holiday season from Ulta, the Maple Syrup Pancakes palette. It was a limited edition holiday thing they did, and I don't know what happened around that time, but for some reason I could not fit it in a video, so I haven't tried it yet. It looks beautiful. Am I going to use it? You know what? It was limited edition and it's past the time where it was new, so I think I'm just going to give it away. I was thinking maybe keeping it for comparison reasons, but I don't have any of their other maple, sugar, cookies, ginger palettes or anything like that, so I don't think I want to keep this one. So it's brand new. I'm giving it away. These two contain my Odin's Eyes single, so I'm of course keeping them. I have two palettes from What's Up Beauty. The Dragon palette I tried in the middle of December last year and it immediately became one of my top palettes I tried in 2023. I love it. The multi-chrome shimmers in this one are beautiful, so of course I'm keeping it. And then I have this other one here, which I also used in a video a while ago and also has incredible formulas and a fantastic color story. It's called the Geodes palette from What's Up Beauty and I'm keeping it as well. If you're looking for an indie brand that doesn't make their makeup in China, these are both made in Italy. This one fully made and assembled in Italy. This one made in Italy, assembled in the USA. Artist Couture Supreme Bronze palette, totally keeping. I think I have another one from this brand. I need to put them together when I organize. ColourPop by the Rosé palette. This was sent to me in PR and I have not tried it yet. I think I'm going to give it away. Yes, I think this one is absolutely beautiful, but somebody else will probably enjoy it even more than I will. Here I have some of my Fantasy Cosmetica palettes. Fantasy Cosmetica is an indie brand which, if you don't know, makes amazing formulas. All of these palettes perform beautifully. All of these have the most incredible intense shimmers. My favorite one is the Fighter palette because it's the most natural one. Anyways, I love these and I'm absolutely keeping them. Glaminatrix Cosmetics Nearly Natural palette. This is probably one of my favorite palettes from Glaminatrix, hands down. I just love this color story. It's nice and neutral and it still has some pops of color. What is not to love? And the formulas are of course amazing, so absolutely keeping. Here's another Fantasy Cosmetica palette. This one is the Warlock palette. I haven't actually used this one, but it looks beautiful, so I'm keeping it as well. Here are my Anastasia palettes. If not all, majority of them. I have the Carly Bible palette, Amrezy, Sultry, Modern Renaissance, Jackie Aina, Norvina. As you can see, some of them I still have in boxes. Shadow Couture, Subculture, Riviera, Prism palette, Alisa Edwards. From the newer ones, the Primrose palette, Rose Metals, Novo, which I love. Then I also have Soft Glam. I'm definitely missing at least a couple here from my Anastasia collection. I am not going to get rid of any of these, at least not right now. I do have to at some point declutter some of them, but today is not the day. I feel like I have to do some sort of rankings on all of my Anastasia palettes or something before I can declutter them, so I'm keeping them all for now. I just got the biggest section out. We are about to go through so many different palettes. A lot of them are from some of my favorite indie brands. Anyways, I'm going to start with some Adept since these are right here. I have the Adept Heather Austin palette, one of my all-time favorites, obviously keeping. Ninidrin right here. I love this one. It's fantastic. I'm keeping. Plain Jane Remastered, beautiful color story as well. And then the Amulet is my least favorite. With that said, I don't think I can part with it, so I'm keeping it as well. Lots and lots and lots and lots of Odin's Eye. So let's go through these. And I have even more Odin's Eye coming, so let's start with these. Snow Dream from the Holiday Collection. Beautiful palette, totally keeping. Trick or Treat from Angelica Nyqvist and Odin's, definitely keeping. I'm keeping the Little Ghost palette, the Hey Reindeer palette, Planet Spirit collaboration palette also keeping. From the first Legendary Diversa collection, definitely keeping. Giant Wolves with Annette, I love this one. From that first collection, my favorite was the Red Dragon. The Gila palette with Angelica Nyqvist, I love this one. Ooh, then I have this one here, the Odin's Eye Alva 2 palette. It's honestly beautiful, but I feel like their formulas have gotten so much better since palettes like this one launched. I'm actually going to give this one away. Here's the Norns palette. Again, a beautiful color story, but their formulas have gotten so much better. And I like the new formats of their palettes better as well. So I'm going to give this one away. Here's the Merry Christmas palette, which is one of my favorite ones when it comes to their holiday collections. Keeping it. And then the Alva eyeshadow palette from Odin's Eye, even it's their like older format, older formula. I'm a sucker for a cool tone pink color story like this one, so I think I'm going to still hang on to it. I'm grabbing some more Odin's Eye and more and more and more. Okay, I think these are all of the rest of them. Spring Dragon palette, this is new to my collection, love it, keeping it. Earthwood palette, keeping. Mighty Monster, I'm obsessed. This Sea Talk palette is one of my all-time favorite Odin's Eye palettes for sure. Love the Christmas Eve palette as well. Ooh, Soul Mane. I love this one. This one is amazing for the spring and summertime. The Flora Story palette, I am unfortunately not a big fan of, and it's nothing to do with the color story because I love this color story. It's more so that the formula of this one for some reason never worked for me that well. However, I think I'm going to still keep it for now just because I have the rest of them that came as part of this collection. Or should I declutter this one? I'm keeping it for now. I don't want to regret not having it. Jewels and Gem, one of my all-time favorite palettes from Odin's Eye. Along with Stone and Rock, they came out together. Both of them are bangers. I love them. Then I have these two from the Saga of Freya. I'm going to go ahead and pass both of them along. It's not like I'm reaching for these all that often. I like them, but I think somebody else will probably love them even more than I do. All right, I'm trying to go through this mess and kind of categorize by some brands or something. So we have Glamminatrix here, random ones to the back. Ooh, here's another Fantasy Cosmetica palette. This is the Rouge palette. I already went through this brand, so I'm keeping it. Adept Cosmetics over here. So let me begin with these right here. These are some of my Glamminatrix Cosmetics palettes. So I have the Sugar and Spice right here, which I love. And these colors, perfection for spring and summer right here at the bottom. And then you can combine them with the neutrals. This palette is amazing. Into the Night from Glamminatrix is a little scary for me, but it's got some of the best foiled shimmers, so keeping it. Rich Romantic, one of my favorites for the rosy color story and the beautiful row of multi-chromes in the middle. Glamorous is definitely a very scary palette for me. However, I can't get rid of it. Look at that shade Dreamy and Opulence. Twinkle. Chef's Kiss. I just have to go into this one knowing that I need some neutrals, but I love the colors. And this right here is one of my newer obsessions from them, the Pretty in Pastels palette. Talk about perfection right here. Every single matte I love, every single shimmer I love, definitely keeping. I already showed you a lot of my Adept palettes. Here's another one. This is the Minka palette, which is holiday perfection. I love those chunky glimmery shimmer shades, and they go really nicely even with the mattes that this palette has. One of my favorites for sure. Here's a couple more Adept palettes. These two are a little bigger. I have the Seahorse palette, spring last year. It's an all shimmer palette. A lot of these are multi-chrome, duochrome shades. And you know I have nothing but praises for Adept Cosmetics shimmers, so I love these. And then this right here came out during the springtime, but it's going to be one of my favorite fall palettes for sure. Flying Fiddles from Adept Cosmetics. I cannot get over the color story of this one. I love the shimmers, and the mattes they shows are perfection as well. Here's a little random selection of palettes to go through. Dominique Essential palette. Really like this color story, definitely keeping. Another one of my Anastasia's palette. This one is Cosmos, one of my favorites for sure, keeping it. Unearthly Cosmetics Resurgence palette in collaboration with Heather Austin. Beautiful color story, and my only Unearthly Cosmetics palette in my collection, so I'm keeping it. Tarte Man Eater palette. This one came out for the full-time / holiday time last year, and I'm not a big fan of this one, so I'm going to give it away. I have 3 Ace Beauty palettes that I've kept in my collection. Here's Begonia. I love this one. I'm keeping it. COLLAB, amazing color story. And the formulas are really nice, also keeping it. And then this one I'm going to be giving away. This is the Paradise Fallen palette from Ace Beauty. It's just not a color story that I reach for that often, so I'm giving this one away. Nomad Air is the perfect travel companion if you're into neutral shades, which I am, so I'm keeping this one. I'm going to move it to my little palettes drawer. And here's another one that I'm also keeping, and I need to move over there, my YSL palette in the shade 200. It's a beautiful eyeshadow quad, nice and luxurious, and I'm obsessed with the packaging. Pat McGrath quad in Passion Fleur. I need to find the box for this one. I'm pretty sure I have it somewhere, and I am keeping it. Charlotte Tilbury's holiday palette last year, which is this one here. I love those shimmers, but I love the matte formulas in here even more. Definitely keeping. And Juvia's Place Afro Galactic palette. I believe this is my only big Juvia's Place palette. And honestly, the formulation of these shades is incredible. They killed it with the color story in general and the multi-chrome shimmer shades. Love these. So of course I'm keeping. I just came across another Anastasia palette. This one is Full Romance from the fall season last year, and I am keeping it. Let's keep going with some ColourPop palettes next. So first I have the ColourPop 1111 palette right here. This one came out rather recently. I'm going to keep it for now just because I am a sucker for neutral palettes, but I wasn't entirely pleased with the quality of this one. I wish that some of these shades, the muted mid-tone shades, were a little bit more pigmented than they are, and then it would have been perfect. However, I can't part with it quite yet, so I'm keeping it for now. Sage the Day. I bought this one, I believe, at Ulta, and I absolutely love this color story with the sage toned green shades, so I'm keeping it for now. Lost in Love is a very recent ColourPop palette. It came out for Valentine's Day this year, and I really like it. However, I feel like this is a very specific color story that I don't see myself reaching for all that often, so I think I might as well pass it along now. I'm going to give it away. Pretty Guardian Sailor Moon collection from ColourPop. This one has a lot of beautiful pastel shades and also some duochromes. With that said, I'm not the biggest fan of Sailor Moon in general, so I don't have intense love for this one. I'm going to give it away, I think. At For a Side is the Raw Beauty Christie and ColourPop collaboration palette, which I absolutely love and I'm keeping. ColourPop Lost in Wonderland palette. I was not the biggest fan of how this palette is set up. I wish that some of the mattes were a little bit darker to kind of help blend out the more intense shades at the bottom. It's a good palette, but I know that I'm not going to use it, so I'm going to give it away. And this one here, you guys have never seen me use because I never had it before. It was sent to me recently. I have not had the chance to play with it yet, but I know I'm going to want to keep it in my collection because it is a beautiful neutrals palette from ColourPop. And I have heard nothing but raving reviews on the Going Coconuts palette, so I'm keeping it. Let's move these over here and go through them. I have the Nomad palette from Sigma Beauty, which is a stunning romantic color story. Definitely keeping this one. My Sigma Angela Bright collaboration palette. Totally keeping this palette's color story is amazing. I love that Angela Bright really thought of versatility when she created this color story. I'm here for it. Lightworks Volume 5 palette from Danessa Myricks. These just keep getting better as years go by. Definitely keeping this one. I love it. Here's another Sigma palette, the Sigma Beauty and the Beast collaboration palette. Really like this color story as well. I do notice some of the colors can be a bit repetitive, but the formulas are fantastic, so I'm definitely keeping this. This BUXOM Forever Babe palette is a total disaster in my opinion. I do not like these formulas. They are powdery. The color stories are kind of boring. If at least the formulas were good, I would have kept it. But I don't know. I really thought this one was really messy to apply. I didn't like the formulas at all, so I'm going to give it away. This Pat McGrath palette is not with the rest of my Pat McGrath collection at the moment because I used it for a video, but I do love this one. It's an all matte palette from Pat McGrath with a really good variety of natural undertones. 100% here for this one. The formulas of these mattes are fantastic as well, so of course I'm keeping it. I don't know what Smashbox and Christian Cohen were thinking when they released this palette. I also don't know who Christian Cohen is. Oh, so maybe there's something very close clever that I'm missing. However, this is the most inconvenient packaging in palette history right here. Here's what the color story of the palette looks like. As you can see, it's never been touched, never been used. And I am going to go ahead and give it away just like that, because again, very inconvenient packaging, and there's nothing too exciting about the color story right here on the inside, so I'd rather just go ahead and give it away. Let me move on to these right here. This Popcorn Balls palette from Too Faced is actually amazing formulation wise. I am going to go ahead and put it in my mini palette drawer, but I love the color story of this one. The shimmers are great, the mattes are awesome. The formulas actually perform much better than a lot of the big Too Faced palettes I've shown you throughout the video. So definitely keeping this one. I have this NARS Orgasm palette here as well, which has this lovely color story. I am keeping it. I'm going to put it next to my other NARS palettes. And then this beautiful Dolce & Gabbana palette that unfortunately arrived broken. I do really like this one and I do recommend it as well. However, I wouldn't recommend ordering it online. Majority of what I heard is that the palette continues to arrive broken. I'm still waiting on my replacement one, by the way. So if you have a Dolce & Gabbana boutique that sells their makeup near you, please go and buy it in person if you're interested. Don't order it online because it's very likely you'll get a broken palette, unfortunately. With that said, I'm crossing my fingers that my replacement arrives unbroken, and I am keeping this one for now. All right, let's keep going. This fabric I put down here keeps getting dirtier and dirtier as the video goes by, but there's no turning back. So let's get our next pile right here. This one is from Charlotte Tilbury. It is one of Charlotte's first eyeshadow palettes I ever saw. I got this one at work when I worked at Nordstrom, and as you can see, I've never used it, which is honestly shameful. However, I think I'm going to actually give it away because I have never used it. I don't think I'm going to use it for comparison videos. I love Charlotte Tilbury, but I think somebody else can get more use out of this one than I can, so I'm going to go ahead and give it away. It's called the Icon palette, by the way. Then I have a couple of face palettes also from Charlotte right here. Take a look. I actually really love these and how versatile these are. I have one more. Let me just open them all and show you. Here's the outside of the third one. I think this third one, by the way, is my favorite. This third one is the Stoned Rose Beauty palette. I love the undertones of the bronzer. I love the eyeshadows. I love the colors of the blush. These are super convenient if you like to travel or if you do your makeup on the go, because you have a lot of things you need all in one. These two launched as part of a collection that is called the Instant Look of Love, and we have a Glowing Beauty and then we have Pretty Blushed Beauty. I am keeping all of my Charlotte face palettes. In fact, I love this box, so I have this one still in its original box, and we are keeping it right there. I said I was going to give this away. Why is it still hanging out? So I'm keeping all of these. Then I have these two right here from a Harry Potter collection with Ulta Beauty. I got Ravenclaw because that is my house, and I got Hufflepuff because I love the color story of Hufflepuff so much. Up here they say the house qualities, as you can see, and I really like both of these palettes. Have I been reaching for them? No, but they're Harry Potter, so you're not going to see me getting rid of them anytime soon. Alamar Cosmetics Disney Encanto collaboration palette is probably my favorite palette they have ever done. Absolutely love this one. It has a beautiful color story. It's colorful but neutral and wearable at the same time. I love the packaging. Definitely keeping it. I just went and got my other two Alamar palettes so we can talk about them together. This is the Alamar Cosmetics La Reina del Caribe Volume 1 palette. Absolutely love this color story. The shimmers are great. The mattes are fantastic. The formulas are excellent. Definitely a keep. And then we have the Spanglish palette. I absolutely love the names of these shades because I do speak Spanglish from time to time. Anyways, I love Alamar Cosmetics. I love supporting the brand, and these palettes are awesome, so keeping them. I have, however, decided I can part with these couple of boxes. I'm about to show you some blast from the past right here. As I said before, I feel like bigger palettes had a moment, and that moment has passed. With that said, these are some of my favorite bigger palettes that I've ever had, and they have definitely stood the test of time for me. So I don't think I'm giving them away. I'm not ready to give these up yet. This one is the Norvina Volume 4 palette, and I had more of these big palettes. I have gotten rid of them throughout the years, but these are my favorites that she's ever launched. So this is the Norvina Volume 4 right here. I love the purples. I love the rosy colors. I love the duochromes. I love the packaging, keeping it. Then I have the Norvina Volume 5 right here, which has an even prettier packaging in my opinion. And I also love the color story of this one. You guys know how I feel about burgundies, and this one has the burgundies right here on the side. I also love purples. There's a really nice variety of colors in this one. As I said, I can't let these go quite yet. Jaclyn Hill Morphe Volume 2 palette, which has the brighter color story that is still really nice and wearable. I feel like whenever these came out, I was so excited to get my hands on them. I was so happy to create looks with them. And even though I don't have a lot of Morphe palettes, I do think that these have a decent formula, the ones that Jaclyn collaborated on. So I'm gonna keep them. Here's the original one that I got the moment it launched, on the first launch before it sold out for the first time. I was one of the lucky ones who got my hands on this one. I have used this one quite a lot. I love the color story and how wearable it is. I love the pops of color she included in there. And I have lots of feelings attached to this one as well. So of course I'm keeping. And then here is my Nomad Cosmetics palette collection. Let me actually break this up into two piles because it's a lot and I'm going to go through it. And I'm actually going to get rid of some Nomad palettes. The ones that I like least, that I don't reach for much, I am going to get rid of. And I'll keep only the ones that I actually enjoy having in my collection. So for example, this one here, I love the color story of it. This is the Nomad, I think Japan palette. It has beautiful pastels, but I don't like the quality of this one. I don't think that these shades perform that well. It's an older palette from them, I believe. It might even like be discontinued now. It's not the Japan palette, I'm sorry, it's the Tokyo palette. I had to double check. Anyways, it takes a lot of building to make these shadows show up the way that I want them to. And this was once one of my only pastel palettes, but there's been a lot of pastel palettes that have come out in recent years, so I no longer reach for this one and I'm going to give it away. Nomad Land of Ice and Fire palette. This one has a pretty bold color story. The formulas of this one do actually perform really nicely, but it doesn't have a lot of neutral shades and it's not one that I reach for that often anymore, so I'm going to give this one away as well. Here's one I love and I'm keeping, the Fêtes de Provence palette from Nomad. This one has a soft color story with some neutrals in it. It's got some peachy colors, some purpley shade, yellows. I do love my yellows. I actually really love this color story, and so I'm keeping this one. Nomad Hudson Valley, which as you can see from the outside is a beautiful warm palette, but I do really also love that they included some neutrals in this one to kind of balance things out, and I think that these neutrals do a fantastic job at balancing out this color story. I love the burgundies they put in here. This red, a bit too bright for me, but I do love these fall shades around it. So with that said, I am keeping this one. Ghost Town USA is probably one of my all-time favorite Nomad Cosmetics palettes. I love this one so much. I love that it's a pretty cool tone palette. It was very different for a palette that launched during fall time, but it still totally fit the theme. This one has amazing formulas. The mattes blend beautifully. The shimmers are fantastic and I am going to, of course, keep it. Nomad Bosque Nuboso del Monteverde palette. Beautiful, bold, colorful. I actually do really like the formulas of the shades in here. And, you know, I gotta have some colorful palettes in my collection. And this one is a really good one, so I'm keeping it. I have Found Memories of the Paradise Islands palette from Nomad. I loved the looks that I created with this one when I first got it. They were bold and colorful, but beautiful and wearable all at the same time. And I didn't really have issues with any of these shades, except for maybe this blue one. I believe this one gave me a bit of a hard time, but everything else I love. Not ready to part with this one, so I'm definitely keeping it. Vienna Love and Death palette from Nomad is one that if I could split in half, I would give away this side and keep this side. But because I can't cut it up and I really like the Morte section of it, I am going to go ahead and keep it. Plus, some of these rosy tones right here combined with these colors also make for some really spectacular eyeshadow looks. Anyways, keeping this one. The New Zealand Stargazing palette came out this year and I have been obsessed with it. I think Nomad Cosmetics has continued to improve their formulas, and I love these multi-chrome shimmers that they have been including in their palettes. I also really love the mattes that they put in this one, and I love that lately they have been putting a really good combination of some neutrals to combine with some bolder colors to make the looks a little bit more accessible. I love this one. Anyways, I'm keeping it. I believe the Royal Euro palette was when they first introduced that beautiful multi-chrome formula right here in these shades at the bottom. This one is colorful, but it's wearable, and I like that the looks are kind of organized by shade. Definitely keeping this one. Here's the Okavango Safari palette from Nomad, and I absolutely love the packaging of this one. However, I feel like I have a lot of palettes that have similar color stories to it, and it's not one that I have reached more ever since I got it. So I think I'm going to pass it along, and somebody else can probably love it even more than I do. Nomad America's Parks palette, I think, has a beautiful color story. From the matte shades, I love this green and this mustard, this purple, this brown, and they go really well with a lot of the shimmers that they put in this one. Anyways, I can't part with this one. I am keeping it. And then we have the Whistler Snow Lodge palette, which has really bold, colorful shades. I remember this one really made me step out of my comfort zone when I created looks with it, but I also remember really liking those looks. Am I reaching for it? No, I'm gonna give it away. Next, I have these two right here, which are both Michaela Glamlight collaboration palettes. These are the only Glamlight palettes in my collection, I'm pretty sure, and I bought them because I wanted to support her and I thought the color stories were beautiful. I was actually pretty disappointed at the first palette from Michaela. I just didn't love the formulas in here, and I remember I think I did a 5 Lux 1 palette for it, and I had a hard time combining the shades to my liking. It was a little too bold. The quality wasn't like my favorite. Anyways, I remember expressing those concerns to you guys in the video, and it's not a palette that I reach for all that often, so I'm going to give it away. But then she came out with a round 2 collaboration with Glamlight, and even though I was disappointed at the first one, I got it anyways, and I'm really glad that I did, because this one is beautiful. I love the color story of this one even more than the first one, and most importantly, the formulas of this one, in my opinion, are much better. So I am going to be keeping it. Moving on to the next section, and not a lot of decluttering is about to go on because the next section is Pat McGrath. You know I'm not gonna get rid of any Pat McGrath palettes. However, there is a couple of boxes that I will be getting rid of. So I mean, something is something, right? Here's Mothership number 1, Mothership number 10, Mothership number 8. I will organize them by number. Here's Mothership number 2, 3, 9, 11, 7. This one is 5. If I were going to declutter any Mothership palettes, which like I said, I'm not, this one here is the one that I would declutter. Mothership number 4. I don't like it. I never have. I never will. But I'm not going to be over here not having a complete collection, right? So we're keeping it. And here is number 6. Here's one of the boxes I have kept that I'm decluttering. This is the Mothership Mega Celestial Divinity eyeshadow palette, a holiday palette from a couple of years ago. And I never got rid of this box because I thought it was so pretty. But I mean, the palette has the same exact design, so why am I holding on to that? And then here's what the inside of this one looks like. Beautiful in my opinion. Mothership Mega Celestial Nirvana palette, which I think might be my most favorite of all of the holiday palettes from Pat I own. I love this one. Celestial Odyssey, which is another box I kept for no reason because the inside is the exact same. Like, I can justify having my Mothership boxes here because the inside of these is not as fun, and this way I can tell them apart very easily. But when it comes to the Mothership palettes, there was never a need. Anyways, here is the other one. Really love this one as well. If I had to rank my holiday palettes, I would go Celestial Nirvana first, Celestial Odyssey second, and then Celestial Divinity maybe third. Anyways, keeping them all, of course. Here are the newest Mothership palettes, which are honestly not nearly as loved by me as the ones I just showed you, because they have 9 shades and 2 blushes. I don't like the format of these. Do they perform well? Yes, they do. Can I create beautiful looks with these? Yes, I can. But I really hate that she stopped doing her Mega Celestial palettes and changed it for this format. I will continue to complain about it till the rest of my days. Anyways, keeping these. Velvet Liaison we saw earlier. I told you I was keeping it, but now it's with the rest of the collection here. This one is Iconic Infatuation, which I also love, and Sublime Seduction, which is the warmer of the 3. Also in that type of packaging, we have both of the Bridgerton collaboration palettes. This one's the first one, which I'm obsessed with that shade right there. It's called Diamond of the First Water. And then here's Belle of the Ball, which I'm obsessed with a lot of those shimmers actually. I love this one and that one most though. Also really love that burgundy shade right there. I'm wondering if once Bridgerton season 3 comes out, which by the time I upload this video, it might be out already. Anyways, I'm wondering if there will be another Pat McGrath Bridgerton collaboration. I'll definitely be buying it if that's the thing. And then here we have Rose Decadence, which is not necessarily a favorite Pat McGrath palette of mine. There are so many others that I like better than this one, but it's pretty and it's romantic and I'm keeping it. I have quite a few quads and I do have them all in their original box because again it helps me tell them apart. Some of my most favorite Pat McGrath eyeshadow quads were the first ones she ever did. These are her Blitz Astral quads. They have special formulas in every single shade. I'm not going to show you all of the quads, but I'll show you some of these because I love them. Take a look at this one here. I love these colors so much. The formulas in here are amazing, and these being all special shades, these are some of the most high quality eyeshadow quads you can find on the Pat McGrath website. Anyways, this one was Nocturnal Nirvana. I also love Iconic Illumination, and this one here is another one of my most favorites. It's called Ritualistic Rose. It has the most stunning romantic color story and these incredibly beautiful shimmer shades that have an amazing formula. Here are the Celestial Odyssey Luxe Quads in Deep Space Divinity and Bronze Borealis. These were not some of my favorites because by the time these came out, we had already seen similar color stories from Pat McGrath. This collection of quads right here, I did really love and enjoy. I think these are fantastic. I love that these combine mattes and shimmers, or in this case, a satin with some shimmers. This blue right here, totally my jam. I absolutely love it. And this quad right here is the Spring Quad from Pat McGrath. It has a beautiful, soft, romantic, kind of pastel-ish color story to it with incredible performance. I love this one. It's called Flor Fantasia. Then here are some of my other ones, and for the life of me, I cannot find the box for this one. I never throw away my quad boxes, but I cannot find it. I think I might have gotten confused with a blush box and I might have thrown it away by mistake. I'm very sad about it. Anyways, my boxless Pat McGrath quad is this one here. It is called Passion Fleur and I'm not giving up on the box entirely. I hope it turns up at some point. These two right here are some of my most favorite Pat McGrath eyeshadow quads. Venus and Fleur. This is the love of my life in a quad right here. This duochrome shade had me in tears when I first saw it, literally. And I also love that burgundy shade. I love this one. Venusian Sunrise is a newer addition to my collection and one that I have been absolutely loving. The color story of this one is beautiful and I could get emotional about that gold shimmer as well. Anyways, I'm keeping them all, of course. Here are my Patrick Ta Major Dimension palettes. Here is the first one. The second one, which in my opinion is even better. I love this one. I think out of the Patrick Ta palettes, Major Dimensions 2 is my #1 favorite. And then Major Dimensions 3, which came out more recently. I love this one. It's all matte. It's got cool tones and warm tones in it. Very multi-use for sure. I'm keeping all 3 of these. From Huda Beauty, I have the Desert Dusk palette. Another box I've been holding on to for no reason. I'm getting rid of. But I'm not getting rid of this palette. Totally keeping it. It is old. I think the formula is kind of expired. But today is not the day. It's part of my Huda Beauty palette collection. I can use it for comparison purposes. We're keeping it. The original Huda Beauty Textured Shadows palette, Rose Gold Edition. I have the first one she ever launched before she redid the packaging, before she redid the formula. Kind of old and expired as well. The formula of this one is not the greatest, but at the same time, I am not getting rid of it. And because this one has different packaging from the rest of them, I will keep it in its box still. We went from the oldest to the newest right here with the Pretty Grunge palette. This one launched last year in the fall time. I do love that Huda only does one big palette launch a year. Helps me get a lot of use out of them for sure. Anyways, I love this one, of course, keeping it. Who am I kidding? I'm keeping everything Huda Beauty, you guys. So Rose Quartz right here. I love it. Mercury Retrograde is one of my all-time favorites from her. I just really love these shimmer shades. They're spectacular. Naughty Nudes, which is another absolute banger. I love this one. I love burgundy shades. Empowered from a couple of years ago, just a fantastic palette. I love the shimmers, love the formulas, love the mattes. All right, I'll get rid of this box as well. This is the new nude palette from Huda, which was an obsession of mine when it first came out. I was in love with this one. I have very few palettes left that have these types of chunky glittery shimmer shades. This one and the Tati palette I think are the two main ones. I am so glad that makeup formulas have improved as much as they have in the past, 10 years or so. And then everything we have left is my Natasha Denona palette collection. These are my face palettes, the Hyper Natural palette, Love face palette, and my favorite, the Glam face palette. I can't recommend this one enough. It is perfect for travel. All of them are, but my favorite is definitely the Glam one. Anyways, I am keeping all of these. I have pretty much every meaty palette Natasha Denona has ever launched. If you guys ever want to buy anything Natasha Denona, use code PATTY15 at checkout and save some money. Anyways, here's my Zenon palette from Natasha. My Dream palette, which I love. The Yucca palette. She really has a gift for creating beautiful color stories. Here's Retro Glam. I also really love these packagings. Glam palette. This might just be one of my all-time favorites. I Need a Nude, which is a bit newer. Oh my god, this palette is so good. The Bronze palette, which came out when warm shades were the it girl. This is lovely. Pastel palette. I love the packaging of this one so much. Sunrise was, I think, the first one she ever launched. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure Sunrise was her first midi palettes. First midi palette, not first palette in general. Anyways, Zendo, which got a lot of hate, but I really, really love this color story. The original Retro, which is one of my least favorites, actually. Another one of my least favorites, the Love palette from Natasha. Keeping everything, of course. Last but certainly not least, my big Natasha Denona palettes. Metropolis right here was the first big one I ever had. I love this one, and it is perfection, especially when it comes to fall time. One of my most favorite Natasha Denona palettes in my collection, period. So sad it's been discontinued. She needs to bring it back in a midi size. I swear this palette is so good. The gold palette from Natasha. Honestly, a neutral girl's dream come true right here. It's just stunning, and the formulas are perfection. Trio Chrome might be one of my least favorite Natasha palettes. Nothing against it, honestly. The color story is good. I love the matte shades. The actual shimmer shades is what left me disappointed with this one, because it sounded like she was going to give us multi-chromes, and they're duochromes at best. And then Circo Loco is a fun palette for color lovers. Love this one. All right. So after hours of working on this, here is the finished look of my eyeshadow palette collection. I added an extra shelf to this side right here, so I have 4 shelves of palettes instead of 3, and I'm really happy with that decision. I even have some space to grow now. Here are the rest of them. So I organized them kind of by brand, kind of by size. As you can see on this shelf up here, I have my Nomad Cosmetics palettes, I have my Alamar palettes, Norvina palettes, and then my Pat McGrath quads. On this second shelf, I have all of my bigger palettes from Pat McGrath, starting with the holiday collection right here. All of my motherships, more holiday because I wanted them to kind of go down in size. And then all of the 6-pan palettes here. The last thing we went through was this shelf right here, which has all of my Natasha Denona, all of my Huda, and my Patrick Ta palettes. On this top one, I have a bunch of random palettes. I have my Tati palette, my Harry Potter ColourPop. I have a lot of ColourPop around this area here. Kaleidos, the Dennis and Myricks palettes, some NARS, some Dominique Cosmetics. Then this is the extra shelf I added. My Morphe palette, Sigma. I have Adept over here, some Harry Potter collaborations, Charlotte Tilbury, my Mario palettes, and then a little bit more NARS and Dolce & Gabbana here. In this one, I have the entire Anastasia eyeshadow palette collection. I have some Too Faced, I have some Urban Decay, and some What's Up Beauty right here in the corner. And then last but not least, I think this is the most pleasing one to look at because I love the rainbow of colors that Odin's Eye left on this shelf. So here I have all of my Odin's Eye palettes, my Fantasy Cosmetica palettes, Adept Cosmetics, and Charlotte Tilbury. I'm honestly pretty pleased with the way everything turned out. Everything is looking very nice and neat. All right, and then on this bin right here, I have all of the palettes that I decided to declutter. There's not a lot that I decided I wanted to declutter, but I honestly love everything that I kept. Let me go ahead and count these. Okay, I just counted. There is 29 palettes total that I am going to be giving away to my friends and family. I feel like eyeshadow palettes is something that I treasure and collect and love and get a lot of use out of. So I'm pretty happy with giving away 30 and then keeping all of the ones that, as I said, I truly do love and I think I'm either going to use or going to use for future videos. I truly hope that you guys like this declutter and organization eyeshadow palette video here. If you did, don't forget to please give it a thumbs up before you leave. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I have videos with pretty much every single palette I kept, so if you're intrigued by any of them, definitely check out those videos. I love you all so much. Thank you for watching and I hope to see you back in the next one. Bye.